What's up, guys? Sporting with Smitty. I'm your host, Smitty. Now, these will be my predictions for the top 25 for week 9 of the college football season. I'm going to have some surprises in here that some of you might definitely disagree with. On the other hand, there are some that are pretty obvious when it comes to the um, this week and when it comes to these games. All right, but let's get into it. Now, starting at number 25, a surprise team that I honestly didn't even realize was undefeated still. And that's James Madison. Now, they're coming off of their big win in Marshall, 20-9. Coming up, they have a home game. They're hosting Old Dominion. The Old Dominion is 4-3. They beat Appalachian State last week, 28-21. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, I don't know too much about this team. The only thing I do know about James Madison is that they do have the best rush defense in college football, and it's not even close. I mean, 36 yards allowed per game on the ground, which is very impressive. No matter who you're playing and or um, really what teams you're playing, that's still very impressive. I don't care what anybody says. That's a hell of a stat. That's really quite shocking, honestly. But I will say this though, this pick is quite easy. Um, I am going to go with James Madison. They are favored by 17.5 by Vegas. The over/under is 49. I definitely think that they're going to kind of put a whooping on Old Dominion. I don't think Old Dominion really stands much of a chance. Next up is a team that um, honestly, I'm not surprised they're still in the top 10. If they were any other team, you would have seen them be booted out of the top 25. And number 24, and that's USC. USC coming off of just an absolute gut wrenching loss to Utah at home. Their defense gave it up, big penalty towards the end of the game. And then, I mean, Utah kicked that just an unbelievable field goal to win the game, put it away in the final seconds. I mean, just what a game that was. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And you could tell that Caleb Williams was just absolutely heartbroken with that loss. USC is favored. Now I know California, they've had a week off, but I don't whether they're at home or away, they stand no chance. I mean, USC's defense is very. Um, they do have the worst rushing defense in the Pac-12, while Cal does have a solid attack on the ground with Jay Knott and Isaiah Fons. I mean, both of them average well over 5 yards a carry. So I think that's definitely going to be something to look out for this week. But I just still think that the offense of USC is talented enough to um, basically outscore their opponent. Pretty much. I mean, Caleb Williams is, and just his unbelievable receiving core that he has. I think that's the difference maker, and I think USC wins that one pretty easily. Next up is one that I think is going to be a lot closer than what Vegas thinks. And I'm looking at Colorado versus UCLA. Um, Colorado coming off of a bye after that just unbelievable loss to Stanford, up 29-0 at home. Your crowd behind you. I mean, one of the few college games on TV that night. I think it was a Friday night. So you've had extra time to prepare for this game, but I mean, damn. Uh, they're very weak up front, and I think Carson Steele for UCLA, I honestly think he's going to run all over them. I really don't see how Colorado is going to be able to stop and be more physical up front, because that's been a problem with them all season long, and that's really been the difference of how they're 4-3 rather than ranked and maybe 5-2 or 6-1 even. That's really been the difference. Now, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what Vegas thinks. I'm still going to go with UCLA to win, continue their uh, continue their winning streak here. That's how I feel about it. Now, coming up next is another team that I'm really not aware of. Honestly, I mean, and that's Tulane at number 22. Honestly, for me, this is obvious. Rice has a very, very terrible offense. They definitely have the worst rushing attack in the nation, and it's not even. I mean, it's. I think they have um, about 50, I'd say, 50 yards a game. Don't quote me on that though, but I just it's amazing to me. It really is. Um, I really don't know too much about Tulane. I'm going to be honest. I don't know about too much about Tulane. They're more of a smaller school, smaller conference, but I'm still going to go with them. I think they beat Rice. It's that simple. Now here's a game that kind of here's a next rank that kind of pisses me off, and I'm going to be honest, it royally pisses me off. Number 21 is Tennessee. I can't stand Tennessee. I don't know how they're still ranked after getting curb stomped by Alabama. They've had 2 road games all year and have gotten their asses beat twice in those 2 road games. The fact that they are ranked still at 5-2 is ridiculous to me. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. They got killed in the swamp, and then they got killed in Tuscaloosa, like I've rightfully predicted. I don't know how they're favored. I think Kentucky gets ready to play, and I think they're ready to play. I really do, because I don't understand it. How in God's name that this team is still ranked? I don't understand it. The teams that they have played that they've beaten are cupcakes. They're a cupcake team, and I'm looking at it here. Tennessee, they're 5-2 in the SEC East. They're not even in the top 3 of the SEC East. They're not even top 3, which blows my mind. How the hell are they ranked? And I mean, looking at their schedule of who they've beaten Virginia, horrible team right now. Austin P, which I think they were up only by 6 at halftime in that game. They've beaten UTSA, they've beaten South Carolina, and they've beaten a very bad, overrated Texas A&M team. All at home. They've played 2 road games, and they've gotten their asses beat in both of them. I don't know how they are still ranked. And I honestly think after just one, they've had a week off, and two, um, I think Mark Stoops honestly has this team ready to play. I honestly think it's a big home game, a chance for them to continue honestly to jump up and maybe leapfrog Florida because of the game that Florida has, which we'll talk about later on. But I'm going with Kentucky. I can't stand Tennessee. I think they're overrated, and I don't think they even have a shot in this game. I don't think they have a shot in this game. I think Mark Stoops gets his guys ready to play, and I think they win. It's that simple. I think Ray Davis runs all over them. Trevor Etienne ran over this garbage Tennessee defense. I think Ray Davis is about to do the same. Next up is an ACC matchup, really high, a big ACC matchup, and it's Duke taking on Louisville. 2 weeks ago, I would have picked Duke. I would have picked Duke to win this game. It's held for the last 3 weeks ago. I would have picked Duke. I would have picked Duke. But right now, the injury to the quarterback, Leonard, the whole situation with them, honestly, um, with the quarterback situation he's taken some licks all season long. He had the really bad injury against Notre Dame at the end of the game, and then he was just getting killed at Florida State. I give Duke all the credit in the world for staying alive and really keeping up with them until the very end, where I mean, it just the talent level wasn't there right at that moment. But I see that Louisville is favored by 4, but I'm still going to pick Louisville. They're coming off a bye. They're coming off a really, really bad loss. I think they're going to come out ready to play. The crowd's going to be loud, and I think Louisville's going to win. Next up is going to be, honestly, it's going to be an upset for me, and it's going to be Air Force number 19 taking on Colorado State. Air Force is favored by 11.5, but I just don't see. I think the talent level of these two teams are different. Air Force is dominant in their conference, but outside of that, I mean, I'm looking at the teams that they've played. And granted, I know the Colorado State has played a couple of the same teams, but I mean, I don't see a pretty much a one-dimensional rushing offense, which usually the military schools are a one-dimensional rushing offense. How they're just going to run all over this team. I think Colorado State comes in. They've played in very good games this year, where they have kept themselves in games. I mean, obviously, yeah, they're not at where they want to be right now, but I still think that Colorado State, they keep themselves alive in this game. I think they play well, and I think they play well enough to win. They're at home. They're coming off a bye. They're coming off, or no, they lost to UNLV, believe it or not. But I honestly think Colorado State's going to pull off an upset here. I really do. I don't think Air Force has ever been 8-0. If they have, comment below. Let me know. But I don't think Air Force has ever made it to 8-0. I think their best record they've ever had was 10-3. Last time they started 7-0, they finished 10-3. So I see that they're favored by 11.5, but I'm still going to go Colorado State to pull off an upset here. Next up is a team that's definitely coming off of a really bad effort. And at number 17, North Carolina. The way they lost, I mean, wow. To lose to Virginia, who was a one-win team, a team that's just not, their program is kind of in a message. They're not a very good program right now. I just, man, I just don't see them losing this game against Georgia Tech. I really don't. Georgia Tech is another below average franchise. I almost said franchise. They're another below average program. By far one of the worst defenses in college football. I think Drake May is going to. I think he's going to slice and dice him up. He's had a great season. He's honestly put himself not only in the Heisman situation, but in a conversation of being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think he's a great quarterback. He's definitely shown more promise than what Mitch Trubisky showed when he was at North Carolina. But I just think North Carolina overall is too strong, and I don't think Georgia Tech is going to be able to hold them on defense. I think Drake May and that offense is going to go off, and they're probably pretty mad about losing to Virginia of all schools. But moving on, number 16, they have a bye this week, and it's Missouri. Mizzou coming off of I rightfully predicted that they would beat South Carolina, and they did, 34-12. Brady Cook had another great game. This is where it gets a little sketchy for them on their schedule, because next week they have Georgia, and then after that they play Tennessee in Tennessee, and we all know how Tennessee plays there, but I still think Missouri might win. And and then they play Florida at home. They host Tennessee and then they host Florida. So this is the Georgia game is going to be big for them, but then to remain even alive and for a chance maybe to pull off, who knows? Who knows if Georgia wins out? Who knows? Because right now they're definitely not as strong as they were the last few years. But Missouri has been a great team this year. Honestly, I've been surprised by them. They weren't good last year at all. They were actually very, very bad. They were not good at all. I mean, Florida barely beat them, but Florida was not good either last year, as they were in the middle, or really in the beginning of their rebuilding process with Billy Napier. And Missouri has definitely improved, but I don't think they are improved enough to go to Athens and beat Georgia. I don't think they're good enough. I don't think anybody's really good enough to beat Georgia right now. Maybe give them a fight at the best, but so Missouri's going to enjoy this bye week, and then they're going to go over to Athens and play Georgia and see what happens. Next up is another SEC team who is also on a bye week after their blowout victory, which I also correctly predicted, and that's LSU. LSU beat Army 62-0. And yeah, it was that kind of game. I think it was their largest blowout victory or their second largest blowout victory in I think like 50 years or something like that. So, I mean, tune-up game for them, obviously, right before the bye week until they have a huge matchup in the SEC West. Um, Huge, absolutely enormous for them to have a chance to win the SEC West. They have to beat Bama, and then obviously hope for a loss from Ole Miss, because Ole Miss is on a whole nother level right now, consistency and just playing good football. We'll get to them later, but this game for LSU, huge for them coming after this bye, obviously. Huge. Absolutely huge. They have to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa to have a chance to win the West. So I'm going to get my prediction um, next week. I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to look into it more, do a little bit more reading on both teams, kind of do my little scouting reports on it, and come up with a better prediction and more accurate prediction next week. Next up, number 14, Notre Dame. They're coming off of also another bye. They're also after an unbelievable win over USC up in South Bend. I mean, wow. Just, I mean, that coach. I don't know why his name escapes me right now. I'm sorry, folks, but Marcus Freeman. Sorry, Marcus Freeman. He had that team ready to play. They were just wow. They were definitely ready to play. They were ready to go, and they put. I'm honestly, I've never seen Caleb Williams play so poorly before. I don't think anybody has up until this point. So, just an outstanding game for them defensively. Game plan. I think this might be a trap game for them, even though they're coming off of a bye week where they've had an extra week to prepare. But I still think that this is going to be a bit of a trap game on them. They're riding high, coming out of a bye after a huge win, but I still think they win pretty comfortably over Pitt. Pitt's Pitt basically. 2-5. They lost to Wake Forest, but Pitt is Pitt. Next up is a huge matchup in the Pac-12, absolutely huge, and it is the Oregon Ducks and the number 8th ranked Oregon Ducks and the number 13th ranked Utah Utes. Both teams coming off of huge wins. Oregon coming off of just a big win after their devastating loss against the Huskies, and then Utah coming up with a huge win over USC. Man, I mean, what a game that was again. I just honestly, Bryson Barnes has very much impressed me with the way he plays, and honestly, if he plays, I think they win. He's a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback that comes in and does his job, and he did last week, and I think he's going to do it again, especially because Utah is hosting this game. I think that's huge. They have the home field advantage, and honestly, again, people are going to think I'm nuts, but I don't trust Bo Nix at all. I don't trust Bo Nix, and I don't think I'll ever trust Bo Nix. Never, ever. I know they're favored by 6, but I'm going to go with Utah. I'm going to go with my gut here. I trust that program. Utah is one of the most consistent programs in the Pac-12 that's ever really in the last 20 years. I just think they're a better program than Oregon is right now, believe it or not. Call me crazy, but I'm sticking with Utah. Next up is honestly kind of a slam dunk of a pick if there ever really was one. And number 12, Ole Miss. They're going to be the biggest LSU fans next week. Let's be honest. Let's absolutely be honest. This one's a win. I'm not even going to even bother talking about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's gotten their asses kicked in every SEC game pretty much this year. They have taken 10 steps back from where they were last year. They were very good last year, but obviously the transfer portal hit them pretty hard. They lost Ray Davis to Kentucky. I mean, they're just not a good team, and I think obviously Ole Miss is my pick, but Ole Miss, they need to win out for a shot, just a shot at a chance to head to the SEC title game. And I mean, looking at their schedule here, I mean, the last real challenge is Georgia. Is Georgia, which could be a preview of the SEC title game. You never know, but they honestly do need to win out. For a chance to get to the SEC title game, they need to win out, and they need LSU to beat Alabama. Because looking at Alabama's schedule, um, looking at their schedule here, actually, looking at their schedule, there's really not much left there for Bama. I mean, I know I hold Kentucky in high regard, but I still it's a time of year when Alabama fixes every mistake they made back in September is erased. They fixed it. They've corrected everything that's been wrong with them in the beginning of the year, and after they win in Kentucky, which I think they will win in Kentucky, and on November 11th they go to Chattanooga, and then they have the what is it, the Iron Bowl, I think it's called. It's a game against Auburn, basically. But looking at that schedule, it's a high chance that they win out. It really is. So Ole Miss, especially if they beat LSU, they definitely win out. So Ole Miss, they have to win out for a chance at win the SEC West. LSU, they need to beat Alabama next week and also win out and hope Ole Miss loses. Or actually, no, they play Ole Miss later in the year, I believe. Well, they know, but still. Well, actually, no, they hold the tiebreaker over LSU because they beat them earlier this year in that wacky game. But again, LSU or Ole Miss, very good program. Lane Kiffin has built a great team there with Jackson Dart. Just it's a typical Lane Kiffin team. Just a great offense, high octane attack. Just great. Um, Next up is another upset that I don't know. I might get it wrong. I don't care, but I'm going with my gut here. And number 11, Oregon State, coming off of a bye, but also they're heading over to Arizona to take on the Wildcats. The Wildcats have been in damn near every single game so far this year, except for one, I believe. But I'm looking at them and I'm thinking that they can pull it off. I'm thinking that they can pull off a huge upset here. They have a very good offense. I mean, they average over 31 points a game. I just looking at their team and their as a whole, I think that they can pull off an upset here. I mean, they've been in every single game. They lost to USC by 2. They lost to Washington by a touchdown. The closest game Washington pretty much has played in until their most recent game against Arizona State. And then at Mississippi State, they lost by a touchdown. Things go the right way. They're unbeaten right now. It's how football is, especially college football. It's so exciting. But I'm picking Arizona. They're at home. They've given the best teams in the Pac 12 hell all season long, and I think they continue it. I think they continue it here, and I think they beat Oregon State. Next up is pretty much another guaranteed slam dunk, I think, is number 10, Penn State, going up against Indiana. Indiana losing to Rutgers this last weekend, which dropped to 2-5. Penn State, who I honestly correctly picked that they would lose to Ohio State, a little bit closer than I thought. I mean, it was a defensive game. They're favored by 31, but I think they do they definitely exceed that, and they blow out Indiana. They correct the mistakes they made against Ohio State offensively, and they just go to town on Indiana basically. Next up is another team on the bye, which I've already talked about today, and that's number 9, Alabama. Alabama coming off of a huge win at home against Tennessee, 34-20. They're 7-1 on the season. Basically, they need to win out to stay alive for the West. They cannot risk losing any of these games, especially next week. Next week is probably I think the biggest game of their season. Um, if they were to beat LSU, I think that guarantees them the West because I don't see Kentucky beating them. I don't see Kentucky beating Alabama. I definitely don't see Auburn beating Alabama, and I'm not even going to talk about Chattanooga. So honestly, next week is going to be the biggest game of the season for them. If they win the West. I don't see them losing. I don't see them losing at all up until at least the SEC title game, which obviously um, that's a discussion for another day. Now, number 7, Texas. Texas avoided an upset. I mean, I think that Texas, I believe, got lucky. They really did get lucky because that spot at the end of the game for Houston and late in the fourth quarter when they were driving, I think that was a bad spot. I thought they got the first down, and I was almost damn near certain that they were about to score a touchdown. But it just wasn't their day. Texas, they're favored big, but honestly, for me, I'm I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking to myself, is Ewers going to be healthy? I swear this man is made of glass. Like he takes it. He's always getting hurt at some point in the game, and always he's honestly unreliable. Call me crazy, but I think he right now he's just been an unreliable guy for them, and I still think Texas is going to win, obviously, because I mean the talent at Texas. They have an excellent running back. Jonathan Brooks has been he's been lethal all season long. He's already almost at 1,000 yards in total scrimmage yards. He's got about 7 touchdowns on the season. Again, 6 rushing, 1 receiving. He's just been lethal all season long. He's one of the best running backs in the country. So I say that Texas does meet the Vegas line of 17.5. I definitely think that they beat BYU. Next up is a team that avoided a massive upset that really would have thrown a wrench in on their potentials to be in the college football playoff, and that's Oklahoma. They survived their trap game. I believe UCF was a huge trap game for them. Even though they had a bye week the week prior, they 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 avoided it. They avoided it. I think they were coming in high off of a huge win over Texas. After that bye week, they still were riding high after that huge win in the Red River rivalry, especially after what happened to them last year against Texas. And they snuck out a victory. I mean, luckily UCF called a terrible play for the 2-point conversion for a chance to tie, which I mean, lucky for Oklahoma, but still, I mean, wow, what a close one. Oklahoma is favored by 10. They're at home. I think they win at home, and they go to 8-0. Next up is another big one in the Pac-12, honestly, for at least seeding wise. Well, not really for the Pac-12, but I think mostly for the college football playoff. And that's number 5, Washington. Washington escaped barely beating Arizona State, which honestly I was not expecting that to be a close game. I don't think anybody was. But man, definitely not a good game for them. Looking at their stats here for that game, I believe Penix really struggled in this game. Arizona State came in at 1-5. Yeah, Penix threw 2 interceptions. He was very inaccurate all day. Great effort by Arizona State, though. I mean, just keep fighting. Who knows? You pull off an upset. You never know. Anything can happen. It's college football, like I've said before. But Stanford, horrible program right now. They've gotten their asses beat in a lot of games. And I think that ass whooping continues. And I think Washington meets that Vegas line of 26.5. Washington wins big over Stanford. Next up, a team that I thoroughly despise in every way, but I really don't see them losing. Florida State, they're ranked number 4. Honestly, at this point, it's going to come down to the Michigan-Ohio State game at the end of the season, and it's also going to come into it's going to come down to who's kicking the crap out of the teams that they're playing. Because looking at it right now, um, obviously, whoever wins the Ohio State Michigan game at the end of the season, they're obviously guaranteed in the spot of the college football playoff and probably ranked number 1. Honestly, After that, it's kind of a mess because still, I mean, I saw a percentage of if they would win out recently, and right now Georgia is at about 80 some odd percent of making the college football playoff if they were to win out, compared to a couple other teams in that, um, such as Washington and Florida State and obviously Michigan and Ohio State, who are basically guaranteed. So it's honestly, we might be seeing some people run up some scores just to kind of get themselves in a more easier position to be in the college football playoff. And Florida State coming off of a big win over Duke. I'd say it's a big win. I'm not sure. I mean, quarterback went down. Still though, they still played. They ran all over them in the fourth quarter. They really just blew them out in the fourth quarter. It wasn't really close. Their defense locked them up. Duke took some risks, but I mean, they couldn't get it by them. Wake Forest, they beat Pitt last week, 21-17. They're 4-3. At home, I still don't think they stand any chance against Florida State. I think Florida State wins easily. They definitely win by more than 3 touchdowns, though. Coming up at number 3, a huge matchup of the Big Ten, honestly. And that's Ohio State and Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, they beat Illinois, excuse me. They beat Illinois 25-21 this past weekend, while Ohio State got the big win for the big in their division of the Big Ten East over, I think it's the Big Ten East. Don't quote me. Yeah, the Big Ten East. But a huge win for them over Penn State at home. Again, correctly predicted that one. I think as much as Wisconsin's 5-2, they could be 5-2 all they want. I just don't think they're strong enough. I don't think they're strong enough to handle. Nobody's been able to stop Marvin Harrison Jr. yet this year, and I think that continues. I still don't think anybody's going to be good enough, or anybody up until besides Michigan, who has the talent to hold off this very good and talented Ohio State offense. So I am going to pick Ohio State. Obviously, easy day. And coming up at number 2, their big rivals, Michigan. Michigan coming off of a huge shutout win over Michigan State, 49-0. This defense is ridiculous. I mean, they're averaging 5. They're allowing an average of 5 points a game. I mean, holy crap! That's wow. I mean, there's really nothing more you could say. That defense is legit. It really is legit. I mean, you could look at their schedule all you want, but I mean, still 5 points allowed per game this year for any college team. Damn, they're gonna bye this week, and I'm gonna make that prediction now. I don't care. Purdue is gonna get destroyed by Michigan. Michigan is about to beat the crap out of Purdue. That's another lock. That's my guaranteed lock for November 4th. Michigan is going to destroy Purdue, and it won't be close. Now, coming up on the biggest game, at least for me this week, and that's the big one for Florida, for Gator Nation. Georgia taking on Florida at Jacksonville. Huge game. Florida, they coming off of a bye. They just won a huge recruit in the recruiting battle. They just got LJ McCray, the ranked best D lineman in the country, over Georgia and multiple other schools. It was a huge win for us in the recruiting, out there in the field for recruiting. Florida's getting better and better. Next year definitely is the year that we finally see maybe Florida is back at football. We're heading that way right now, but I still don't think that we are good enough to beat Georgia. I definitely think it's going to be closer than 14.5, though. I think they're being too friendly with Georgia right now. Georgia has started off slow all year long. They've been very conservative at the beginning of games. You saw it in the Auburn game. You saw it in a couple other games. You saw it in the Vanderbilt game. Vanderbilt was there with them, and Vanderbilt's a really bad team. But now especially with the loss of Brock Bowers, I think it's going to be very hard for them to be as strong offensively immediately right off the bat against Florida. That's how I'm feeling right now. But I am going to pick Georgia. I don't think it's going to be by. I don't think they're going to win by 14 and a half. I don't think that. I think Florida is getting better and better every week. They've had a whole week off to prepare for Georgia. I think if Coach Napier has an offense that's um, and is a heavy kind of aerial assault offense, like it was towards the end of the South Carolina game, I think that they have a chance to at least make it a game. But then again, I still don't think Georgia's going to lose. I don't think Georgia's going to lose or has a chance to lose until the college football playoff. So I think Georgia wins out. Florida, though, I'm happy with the direction that the program is going in. Very excited. with the recruits that's coming in, a uh, top three in recruiting right now in the country, behind Georgia and I think Ohio State. I think it's Ohio State. At least on 24/7, it's Ohio State. But I'm really excited for the direction of the program. The rest of the season, I think it's going to be tough, but I think we can definitely make us a very good bowl game. But let me know what you guys think. Honestly, tell me what your upsets are. Do you think? Do you think? Do you think honestly? There's going to be another upset. Do you think that Florida can shock Georgia? Do you think that Wisconsin's going to come in and shock Ohio State? I mean, let me know in the comments below. Let me know how you feel. Um, I'm definitely open to any kind of discussion. But again, I want to appreciate those who have recently checked out the channel. I appreciate those who have recently subscribed to the channel. Like I've said before, like I've said at the end of every video, there's definitely more content to come. For NBA fans, I've been working on definitely a new video to add on to the worst teams in NBA history, where now I'm going to be digging into the best teams in NBA history. So, and again, I'm not, it's impossible to make the arguments without pissing somebody off, honestly, about who's the best team of all time. Some people say the Warriors are 73-9. Obviously, some people say the Bulls. Some people say the Showtime Lakers. Some people say the Kobe Lakers. It's impossible. It's honestly an impossible discussion to have without pissing somebody off. So I'm going to go about it the same way I went about it with the worst teams of all time. I'm going to go through team by team, looking into their history, doing a deep dive into every team's history in the NBA. Who is their best team ever? The best team in each team's history. That's the next video I'm working on. So just stand by for that. But again, hey, let me know how you feel in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.